All right, so there's this problem number 13 here that talks about what is this structure. It's number 13 on page 8 of Objects Classes 2, part 1 through 9. And what do we have here? Well, we have a book a book constructor that have the title, price, instance variables, and it also has an author instance variable that is an object of type author. Right. So it's asking you what is the relationship between book and author in the classes. Inheritance, composition, aggregation, or polymorphism. And inheritance means that you have a child class and a parent class, right? So if if author was a child of book, that means the author would extend book, and then author would be a book, right? But an author is not a book, so that doesn't make any sense. And then we have polymorphism, and polymorphism is where you put, how can I explain this? Let's see. Let me go ahead and use some code here. Is where you have, let's say, an array of parent objects, so we could say maybe pet array is equal to new pet bracket. Let's say we have 3 elements in there, and then from there we'll say pet array sub 0 is equal to new dog, and then we'll put a dog in there, and then we'll do pet array bracket 1 is equal to new cat. We'll put a cat object in there, and of course dog and cat are both children classes of the pet class, right? And so let's assume in the pet class, this is to borrow from a previous FRQ problem, we have a make sound method, right? And then in the dog and cat class, we also have a make sound that overrides the parent class, and this one barks, and this one down here meows, right? So we put these 2 guys in, and let's go ahead and put one more just for good measure, and let's say it's equal to new dog. And then what do? We iterate through the array, and we will do pet array bracket I dot make sound. So what's going to happen? Well, pet array sub 0 is a dog, right? So it's going to look for the make sound definition in the dog class. So it's going to run bark, right? And then a pet array sub 1 is a cat. So even though the cat was typecasted as type pet, it looks in the pet class's definition for make sound, and it finds it, and it meows. Then the array iterates again, and it's pet array sub 2 make sound, which is a dog, which runs dog's make sound, which barks, right? So the idea here is that you have objects of the same type pet, running the same method, but executing different blocks of code, right? That's polymorphism. And the general idea here is that the type of class on the left side of the equal sign tells you which methods are available to use, and the class on the right side of the equal sign tell you where they're defined, right? So this here is type pet, this here is type dog. So if I'm running make sound, first it checks, is make sound defined in pet array? Yes, it is. Okay, so I can run it. Now I'm going to look in the dog class first for the definition, so it barks, right? And then when it iterates again, it's going to say, okay, well, pet array sub 1, well, it's a type pet, and it has make sound in it, so I can run it, but I'm going to look for the definition first in the cat class, and so it does, and it meows, right? That's polymorphism. The next section is composition and aggregation. And so these topics I don't think we talked about too much explicitly, so this is kind of a quick explanation that doesn't go over every nuance, but will give you a general idea. An association, there's three types of descriptions. There's association, aggregation, and composition. And as you can see by this diagram, a composition is a type of aggregation, and an aggregation is a type of association, right? So just like this might, like a parallel example would be, this is a human, this is a male, and this is a Korean male, right? So that's the way that kind of works. And so what is an association? It can be seen right over here, right? So let's say we have two classes. We have manager and manager 1 and 2, and we have two employees, employee 1 and 2. Well, an association means that an employee can can be connected to a manager, right? And an employee 2 can also be connected to a manager. But not only that, but employee 1 can be connected to two different managers if he wants. And employee 2 can be connected to two different managers if he wants, right? And on the flip side, So what would this example be of association? It'd be perhaps the manager class has a method that takes in employees, right? So if the manager class had a payroll method, and the payroll method took in an array list of employees, then that means that this employee would be connected to manager 1, and so would employee 2. He'd be connected to manager 1 because they're both being sent in to calculate payroll, right? On the flip side, let's say both of these guys are connected to manager 1 through that payroll method. Well, let's say employee 2 went ahead and did some overtime in a different department, right? So then that means the employee 2 is also connected to manager 2, because when manager 2 runs his payroll, he's also considering employee 1, okay? So this is like the loosest form of a relationship, okay? The next one is aggregation. And so aggregation is something similar to this, right? And the idea here is that the person can only be connected to one manager. Okay. So if person 1 is connected to manager 1, he cannot be connected to manager 2. If person 2 is connected to manager 1, he cannot be connected to manager 2. So you could think, so that's the idea here with aggregation. And then composition means that, so aggregation, let me make another point. Aggregation, the object person 1 and the object person 2 exist on their own, separate from the object manager. Okay? So what does that mean? That means person is it could be made in the driver. Person 2 could be made in the driver. Person 3, a manager, could be made in the driver, right? Person 1 is sent to the manager as an instance to be set as an instance variable. Okay? Maybe person 2 is also sent to the manager's constructor so that it could be set as an instance variable of the manager. All right. But if you do that and you destroy the manager, you set it equal to null, the person 1 and person 2 still exist in the driver. They still exist. They exist separate from the manager, right? So that's aggregation. Composition is a little bit different. Composition is if we had a location class and an employee class. The employee, which is one of the instance variables of location, that cannot exist apart from the location. Okay? So once the location is deleted or set to null, then the employee is also destroyed. All right. And now how would this situation happen here? Well, if we take a look back at our problem, you could see here that the object is created in the constructor of the book class. So over in the driver, you're going to be making a book object by running this constructor. Okay, so then all of a sudden you have these instance variables, and in the variable that contains the book object that we just made, it points to where these instance variables are in memory. once you go ahead and take that variable that contains the book object and set it to null, there's no way to access this author anymore. The bridge is cut, right? And so this here would be an example of composition for that reason. Yeah, so I guess that's all I have to say about that.